We all experience challenging and difficult situations in life. In the face of these complexities, it is not always clear how to respond, what to do, or what to avoid. It's easy to get stuck in these moments and stop moving forward in life. Wholeness with Naomi is a program that explores our experiences with such encounters and provides tools and strategies that can enable anyone facing these hardships to continue walking their path in life. We can't wait to meet you on this journey. Tune in, your life is about to change for the better.
Welcome to our program, Wholeness with Naomi, where we talk about different and sometimes difficult situations that you may find yourself in. More importantly, we talk about the tools that you can use as you navigate in these different and difficult paths. Today on the show, we are talking about the subject of money and marriage. It is often said money is one of the leading causes of divorce. Today we want to talk about that subject. Why money causes that? What power does money hold on marriage? Joining us on the show today is Ms. Shalom Govero, who is a financial expert, and she'll be taking us through this topic today. Welcome to the show, Ms. Shalom.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Yes, today we're talking about money and marriage. And as I shared earlier on, it's often said that it's one of the causes or leading causes of divorce. Mm-hmm. And I want us just to talk about why that is so.
Yeah, and for me in my work in the last, 10 years of training in financial education, a lot of the issues that come up in training rooms is around this whole aspect of what do I do with my spouse? We're not agreeing here. He spends differently from me. Mm-hmm. I don't think he understands the importance of investment, for example. Mm-hmm. So I've realized that I can sum up the different reasons in sort of three words, okay, which is an acronym. So the reason why money is such a thorny issue in marriages is because of three reasons. Number one, money is personal. Okay. Right. So when I mean money is personal, is that a lot of the way you manage money is based on your personal experiences. Okay. So what that means also is that there are money traumas that come with that, the experiences that you went through that inform your money habits, that inform how you even approach things like savings or financial products like banks, for example. We have a whole, we're calling it a sort of level of trauma with banking in Zimbabwe, for example, or insurance providers because of what happened in the past. So we say money is personal because you really bring a lot of who you are as a person to how you handle money. Okay. Yes.
So it's a summation of all the life experiences that you've gone through. All of that is also being expressed in how you view money.
Exactly. In how you view money, in how you use it, how you accumulate it. Even when you look at, your career choices, they're all linked to maybe some things that happened in your past or your upbringing or even your education, right? The second P is that money is private. Now, privacy is a contextual issue or a cultural issue. We are taught growing up what we consider private. So it's not something that can be, sort of generalized. So something that's maybe called private in our context may not be private in another context. But let's look at the Zimbabwean context, for example. So a lot of us grew up with parents that had the father working in the city and the mother living in the rural areas. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about a specific generation here. That's not our generation. That's not millennials. This is the generation soon after independence, right? So what that did is that the men were the ones that were earning a specific salary and what have you, and they would make all the financial decisions, as it were, because they were the ones that were earning. Mm-hmm. And this is where you sort of hear these statements around, but yandino khora ndinino iziva, right? Because these were things that were passed on generationally, where the men knew how much they earn and they don't tell their spouses. In fact, they just say uruda marie, then they give you from their pocket. You don't know, you never really know how much there is in that pocket.
It's interesting that even in a marriage setup where it's two people that have come together to do life together, money becomes something which is private.
Yes, because it's a contextual issue, it's a cultural issue, it's something that's passed on from generation to generation. And in fact, one of the issues now is because now in a marriage setup, what you've just mentioned, we're coming together and we are trying to build intimacy. intimacy flies into privacy, right?
It does.
It says, break down all the walls and open up, be transparent,
Be
vulnerable, so that we can build together.
Yes.
So that's why it becomes such a thorny issue in marriage. The final P is that money is political. Now, not in the way you think,
Okay.
but from the perspective of saying there are power dynamics when it comes to managing money. So what do I mean? Because politics is just really saying who gets what, when, and how, right? So you think of family dynamics that come into play, family politics that come into play. Isusu kwelu tinodai, but kwe ava avaite isusu. Saka, how do we then manage money when we come together and we're trying to come up with a family unit that manages money and decides who gets what, when, and why? That's why money in marriages is such a thorny issue, because of these 3 Ps. It's personal, it's private, and it's political.
Oh, that's quite insightful. I'm even trying to see where I stand in all those 3 Ps that you've also just mentioning, just taking it to that personal level.
Yes.
So just as we continue with the discussion, Ms. Govero, are there any maybe healthy communication habits that can help maybe couples go through the 3 Ps that you've mentioned?
Mm-hmm. So the first things that I always tell people is that when you are in the dating phase, right?
Before marriage.
Before marriage, let's start there, because a lot of times we kind of think that money is not that big of a deal. I remember when we were still dating with my husband, there are things that, even if someone doesn't have money.
It sounds obvious that things will flow like this.
Exactly. And even if your partner doesn't have money that day, I don't know, you just kind of find a way to make it work, and you have probably the best time. Even when you've just spent $5, it's like, oh my gosh, we had the best time, right? But then the reality of the matter is that when you then get married, you're going to have to make money decisions. And these cut across, every single day that you have, you're going to be having, you're going to have to make money decisions. So it's important that at couple stage, people talk about these things. What do I mean? You talk about what are the experiences you had in your upbringing that informs, how you manage money. A simple way of doing it is to run, just a quick money quiz. These are available online.
Okay.
Do a money quiz together, kind of see your money personalities. Because money personalities are really interesting, because they then start to reveal how you approach things like saving, investing, or spending. And that can be a really good starting point. And I remember I used to always encourage people to do the coin game, but now we don't really have a lot of coins going around.
Yes.
But you could do it where you can sort of pick a year out of a hat even. And then your partner asks you what happened that year that had, sort of a financial impact on your life. It could have been a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay.
That can open up, conversations around money trauma. Because a lot of the money decisions that you're going to be making will most of the time be based or rooted in your money traumas.
That's quite
That
interesting.
that can be a really good way to start the conversation. So this is prior to marriage. And you know what? I often tell people that people go to premarital counseling. That's great. But engage a financial coach and have a financial coaching session. It can do a world of good for you and help you to start on the same page.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I really want us to go further in this topic, but before we do that, let's take a short break. To join me in the next segment. Thank you. Welcome back to our program, Wholeness with Naomi. Today on the show, we're talking about the subject of money and marriage. And before we went on a short break, Ms. Govero was just sharing with us about the different personality types where money is concerned. I'm just interested in knowing, so is it possible that when one has seen that my partner has trauma with regards to money, that they can actually say we are not able to continue to marriage?
Very big question, huh? I think it really depends on how bad is this, right?
Okay.
How bad is the situation? One of the things I forgot to mention is that when you then talk about money before marriage, it's also important to come clean about certain things like the debt that I have, the amount of money that I'm actually earning currently, because we don't marry potential only. We also need to marry, current figures with reality, so that we know, oh, okay, when we get married, you are bringing in $200, this one is bringing in 100. This is the kind of budget we'll work with. So part of that is also talking about the debt that each person carries. Now, if you realize before marriage that this person is owing a lot of money and they're not even making a plan about this, it could be a deal breaker for someone, right? So it really depends on how you're ranking these issues. But when it comes to money traumas, we can deal with them. We can work it out. Why? Because people change, people grow. And also the biggest thing is having an awareness about it. Okay. A lot of us are not self-aware, especially when it comes to money. We really just don't know what's going on within us. We just sort of make money decisions and we wonder, where is that coming from? Right?
How did this happen?
How did this happen? So self-awareness, and then not just self-awareness, but then having the awareness for both of you, saying, actually, we are seeing, where these issues can cause conflict, and then saying, what kind of plan can we come up with when we get married? Okay. So I'll give you a good example. My husband is a spender, and I'm a saver. Before we got married, there are things
so these are different personalities.
Money personalities, yes. So I'm more of a saver. I hoard money. I like to keep as much money as possible. But my husband is more of a spender. So before we got married, it's things that I would notice that I think my husband likes to spend. But we'd have to have a proper conversation about it so that we can then agree, okay, so when we then get married, who takes care of the savings kitty? So it probably means it's me. Right?
Because you are the saver.
I'm the saver. So it means now we can complement one another based on the strengths that we have. And we can also help each other, reduce the impact of your weaknesses or your extreme financial habits. The ones that we are not too happy and proud of, those financial habits that are detrimental, we can reduce the impact of it if we are aware. Okay. And we can come up with methods to help you sort of reduce the impact of that.
That is quite key, being aware, especially where money is concerned.
There we go.
But let's go a little bit further. This is now a couple. They have different money personalities, as you were just sharing on. What sort of challenges can people experience if they find that they have different personalities with regards to money?
Oh, the issues are plenty. They are various, right? So one of the things I've also noted is that if couples are not having frequent money conversations, and they're not having conversations that are beneficial to their financial plan, they can actually build very separate lives, which is very detrimental. Same house,
separate lives,
but separate lives. So you have women who have property in their names and their spouses don't even know.
I've heard of those.
Exactly. You have maybe a spouse who has, a completely different financial life to their spouse. So when death happens, that's when usually these things come out in the open. And it can be a nightmare for whoever is remaining, whether it's the children or the other spouse. So that's one of the extremes that happen, right? But those extremes are built by the small things that we hide from each other. The fact that, maybe you may buy a perfume and you don't want your spouse to know, or you may buy a handbag or a laptop or a gadget and you don't want your spouse to know. And that sort of adds up, because what it actually also means is that whatever we're trying to build, we are unable to build it, because now it almost looks like we're building on one salad, when actually it could be two incomes that is building one unified life or one unified family unit, or family wealth rather.
Yes, and when people are working together, unified in that they actually have so much strength together.
There we go. And one of the things I encourage people to do, which is very interesting in our context, because the departure is because people don't talk about what they're envisioning about their financial future together. So I often give couples an exercise to say, go and just dream about your future. Each person should draw a picture of what their future is going to look like, maybe 5 years from now. What is that picture that comes to your mind? Individually. Then you come together and you compare the pictures. You will be surprised to know that some people will be like, I never even knew that's the kind of house you wanted. I never even knew. Every time you said you want a house, I didn't know this is what you were thinking. I didn't know that this is the kind of car that you want to drive. And sometimes when we start there, we're able then to say, okay, so how do we do this together? And then we come up with the strategies for spending, saving, and investing together. But the first thing is, do we have the same picture? Are we seeing in the same light? Because if we're not seeing the same picture, then definitely we're going to be building differently. And what also tends to happen is that if I don't see what you are seeing, I may even start to fight you because I'm thinking, why is she emphasizing that we need to go and buy a stand? What's the importance of a stand? I just want to buy a house. I'll just get a mortgage and buy a house, right? So you end up fighting on things of just making a simple decision to say, do we buy or buy a house or purchase a piece of land and build.
Same goal, but getting there.
Same goal, but we're getting there differently. Okay. So let's decide by starting off with the same picture. When we start off with the same picture, it then helps us to distill that picture into actual goals. So I often give people an activity to then say, you then do an annual general meeting, where you talk about this picture and how you're going to get there. And you really put everything on the table. I may be running a business, you are running a business, but what are we going to bring to the table to bring this vision to life, this 5-year plan that we have on the table, to make sure that we get there together?
That's quite deep. Thank you so much for that sharing. Viewers, let's take a short break. Do join me in the next segment. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers, to our program, Wholeness with Naomi. Today we're talking about the subject of money and marriage. I want to understand this, Ms. Scovero. Is it possible for people that have gone through trauma with regards to finances, that could be 10 years, that could be 20 years, as I shared earlier on, it's one of the leading causes of divorce. For people that may be on the verge of it or have gone through difficult situations with regards to money, is there any hope for them? Are there any tools that they can use for them to move from that place, coming to that place where both of them are able to see things together and they're able to work together?
That's a really tough question. You know why? Because the issue is not just money in those instances. There are other things that have then come into play. So what tends to happen is that money has a tendency to make us selfish. Right? So we can start to operate or make decisions based on what we feel is good for us, right? So that's what causes the pain, that's what causes the bitterness and the resentment, because I feel unloved or I feel disrespected because you went on and bought a piece of land without considering me. So now the issues are no longer just about money, but they are now marital issues. So the first part is to really say you need to sit down and ask yourselves, what are now the issues? Because they've gone beyond money now. You start working on the issues. And this is where you may need to forgive the other person, right? And start off building a bridge, which has to do with you getting marital counseling first of those issues. Then aside those marital counseling sessions, you can then start working on a financial plan that you both have input in. So that's why that first P is very important. Because money has that power to evoke personal, deep emotional feelings. I can be hurt at a very personal level when really it was just a money decision. You can even explain that to someone and they'll wonder, why are you fussing? If it was my husband, I wouldn't even worry. And then the other person is trying to articulate that, no, it's not the fact that it was bought. It's the fact that maybe during the decision making, I was not included. And that makes me feel like I'm not part of what's happening. So you need to realize that a lot of these issues then become marital issues, not just money matters. Time and time again, I actually separate couples when you're now doing financial coaching at that level, because you want someone to take ownership of what they did in that particular scenario and be able to work out, because these are, like I said, they're personal issues. So the line between personal finance and family finance is often blurred, especially in times of hurt, you know. So yes, it's a family finance issue, but now it's become personal for me. So sometimes we may need to separate the two and deal with, okay, what was your part in this? You know, how can you maybe, fix your own financial habits and become a healthy financial partner for your spouse, right? So that when we go back and we're now building together, we are now at the same level.
That is really quite profound. Viewers, as you are watching the show, there is nothing that is new under the sun. The situation that you're facing, experiencing with your spouse, which maybe you may be thinking that this has come to an end, there is hope. What are some of the tools that people can use who are finding themselves, as you shared, we started off from people that are maybe experienced trauma as a result of money, but even on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the tools that people can use to be able to ensure that they have a healthy financial relationship?
Good question. I think one of the things I often encourage couples to do is visit a financial institution together, right? And get to talk to a financial advisor. Financial advisory in Zimbabwe is free, right? In most financial institutions. So walk into one, talk about what they offer for your family finance, but it's also an opportunity for you to just talk with a neutral party who can bring in different ways of getting to your goals, and they can also help you see things differently. So that's the first tool.
Where are they found?
I mean, any financial institution you go into today, you literally can walk in and say, I want to speak to a financial advisor with my spouse. We want to discuss what you can offer us. The reason why you ask the question, we want to discuss what you can offer us, is because it's also an opportunity for them to share their own product catalog with you. But don't worry about the product catalog. Whether you take it or not, it's fine. The important thing is you've gone in with your spouse and you get to talk about your dreams, your goals, and where you are going as a couple, right? So that's one tool. The other one I want to also help you with is, in our context, we are very churched. So we have a lot of church meetings, we have couples meetings. Let us invite, once again, those banking institutions I mentioned, some of them can actually come and just give you a financial literacy or a financial education talk for free. Why are they doing this? Because we understand societies are built on family strength, right? So if you can bring in a financial educator on board to your couples meeting, they can help even start conversations around estate planning. We have a crisis in this country. People don't have wills, they don't have trusts. Estate management is a whole issue by itself. A lot of lawyers now can offer you an estate planning session for free, because they're saying, if we come in and we give it for free, maybe some of you may want to engage our services. So bring these people in. Some of them are already in your networks. Some of them are already people that come to your church, but they are professionals with that help. They can speak into those issues. Because when we are in a neutral environment, people warm up to that. People listen to, people who are of authority, that have been brought in by the church. So you don't have to do it. And I know a lot of women do this. They nag their husbands about these financial issues. And it never helps, right? Bring in a neutral party. I was at a men's wellness day at a church 2 weeks ago as a woman speaking on this. It was such a joy for me to just speak to a group of men, speak to younger men, speak to older men and say, hey, your wives are saying this. The girls are saying this. Fix this up. And it can be such a powerful session, because people then see the importance of doing life, or finances rather, together.
What is key, which is coming out from your sharing, is that when you bring such people into your communities, even some of those difficult and tough conversations, they become much easier, because there's someone that is sharing, that is breaking all that up down. So it makes even that whole conversation much easier for you. But let's look at a family level. How can we ensure that we have a healthy financial relationship, we are managing our finances well at a family level?
Once again, the same principles apply. So if we hear a show like this on TV, let's discuss it together. The same way we discuss about, the soccer teams, I won't mention them by name, but we talk about this soccer team has done badly this season, etc. Bring those money conversations to the kitchen table. We once did a financial education workshop where one guy said, you know what, I'm going to take this budgeting template and do it with my kids. He did it with his kids and he said, my goodness, these kids have got so many ideas on where we can get cheap stuff. They were telling me, no, Dad, we don't have to use this much for that. Reduce it. And he got so much from them. He thought they wouldn't understand, but they do.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for joining us on the show. Any last words for our viewers?
For me, I think the biggest thing I often tell people when it comes to money in marriage is that you've got to make sure you are on the same page. You know, get onto podcasts together, learn together. When it comes to finances, there's so many things that people do not know. Get to learn together, because knowledge a lot of the times breaks down the misconceptions from our upbringing. It breaks down the trauma issues because you've been enlightened. So make sure you learn together. Read a book together on finances. You know, pick up a podcast. There's one called Mari Podcast. It's a free podcast online. You can listen to it and get to learn together about money. That can be a game changer for you.
What challenges are you facing? What can you put in place to ensure that you continue walking that path and you're able to overcome the challenges you're currently facing? There is hope. Even for one that was about to throw in the towel, there is hope. Get into the community, seek for support, go for professional services. But these two can be something that can be overcome, and you can work together with your spouse, coming to that place where both of you are able to achieve your goals together. Do join me in the next episode, but in the meantime, continue in wholeness. Thank you.